It's like a hidden gem. It's like an oasis in the middle of New York City. We have green everywhere. We have park benches with shady trees. We have outdoor space in abundance. It's a calm, quiet place with a bunch of stuff to see, but it's just a nice place to live.
The wind hit hard as I stood on the Queensboro Bridge, the kind of sharp breeze that makes you pull up your collar without thinking. In the distance was Manhattan, a concrete jungle where dreams are made. But right beneath me, in the middle of the East River, sits a sliver of land that is unlike anywhere else in New York City. It is the Roosevelt Island, the holy grail of New York City's urban planning. It may not have the flash of Times Square or the history of Ellis Island, but what it lacks in fame, it more than makes up for in purpose and design. This little island's history, geography, and planning all blend together to create a model for urban living that many cities should envy. Speaking of being little, with just a mere 2 miles long and 800 feet wide at its widest point, Roosevelt Island is indeed little in proportion to other U.S. islands. However, good things come in small packages. Perfectly wedged between Manhattan and Queens, it stretches from the Upper East Side down to the United Nations headquarters. Its strategic location is part of what makes it so valuable. It offers breathtaking views of Manhattan's skyline to the west and the quieter Queensboro neighborhood to the east. And the euphoria doesn't end there, because one of the most lovable features of this island is its accessibility.
We have a little red bus that goes around the whole island. It's free. So when you get off the subway, get off the ferry, get off the tram, you can take the little red bus to where you live on the island.
It is so easy to get to Roosevelt Island. I mean, you can just enter the iconic Roosevelt Island tram, one of the few urban aerial trams left in the U.S. And in less than 4 minutes, you are soaring over the East River with a bird's eye view of the city. But if you have acrophobia, you can simply drive over the Roosevelt Island Bridge. Once you're inside, you'll immediately experience the aura and vibe similar of that of San Francisco's Golden Gate Park. And that reminds me, if you've not watched our earlier video on San Francisco's Golden Gate Park, please do so with a link in the description below after this video. It is a great watch, and trust me, you will really enjoy it. Now back to Roosevelt Island. Perhaps the icing on the cake of Roosevelt Island is its urban planning. Unlike the crowded streets of Manhattan, where buildings are crammed together like sardines in a can, Roosevelt Island was designed with space in mind. You see, back in the 1970s, when the island began its redevelopment, about a quarter of the island was set aside for parks. Now, it is home to some of the most beautiful spots in the city: Lighthouse Park, Octagon Park, South Point Park, and the iconic Four Freedoms Park. There are also wide-open pedestrian walkways and bike paths. Like they say, good fences make good neighbors. And on Roosevelt Island, those fences are the parks and walkways that create a sense of calm and community. It is a place where you can slow down, take a breath, and enjoy the beauty around you without the constant rush of city life. Take Four Freedoms Park, for example, at the island's southern tip. Dedicated to Franklin D. Roosevelt, it is a stunning example of how green spaces can coexist with urban development. The park provides residents and visitors with a peaceful escape, all while offering views of one of the busiest cities in the world. However, to every success story, there is usually a humble beginning. But not in the case of Roosevelt Island, because its humble beginning was overshadowed by its dark history. Once known as Blackwell's Island, then Welfare Island, Roosevelt Island has seen more transformations than a shapeshifter in a Hollywood blockbuster. Its story began in the 1600s when it was settled by Dutch colonists. It later became home to a slew of facilities: a penitentiary, a smallpox hospital, and an insane asylum. You could say it was New York's out-of-sight, out-of-mind problem solver for many years, where the city sent people and things it didn't want to deal with. Nevertheless, by the mid-20th century, urban planners decided to make lemonade from lemons, so they devised a totally different vision for the island. In the 1960s, New York City partnered with the state to redevelop the island into a residential community, a place where you could live just a stone's throw away from Manhattan, but without the constant chaos. Then, in 1973, the island was renamed from Welfare Island to Roosevelt Island, in honor of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development hoped this change would draw in fresh faces, and it did. As the first residential buildings opened, families and individuals flocked to the island. It attracted middle-class families, disabled residents who found the island's wheelchair accessibility appealing, and even United Nations employees thanks to its proximity to their headquarters. You know how they say, build it and they will come? And that is exactly what happened here. 2017 saw the opening of the iconic Cornell Tech campus on the island. It was the jewel in the crown of Roosevelt Island. The campus features bioswales that manage stormwater on site, filtering runoff naturally before it reaches the East River. The Bloomberg Center is designed for net zero energy consumption, utilizing a ground source heat pump and solar photovoltaic canopies, which are the largest installation in Manhattan. The house, located inside the campus, is a 26-story residential building, which provides 350 units for students, staff, and faculty. It is the tallest passive house residential building in the world, achieving up to 80% reduction in heating energy compared to conventional buildings. There is also a 40,000-gallon rainwater harvesting tank in the campus which collects roof runoff, supplying up to 60% of non-potable water needs for the Bloomberg Center and irrigating campus landscapes. The campus was purposely elevated above the 500-year floodplain to mitigate future flood risks. This campus marked the island's new identity as a hub for innovation and technology. Roosevelt Island may have started with a grim purpose, but like an old, worn-down house that gets flipped into a modern home, it has emerged as a shining example of what thoughtful urban planning can do. But that is not to say Roosevelt Island is perfect. Like the rest of New York City, it is not immune to the housing crisis. There has been some growth in recent years, nevertheless. Housing units increased by 14.1% between 2010 and 2020. Regardless, the island still faces challenges when it comes to affordability, and recently in accessibility, because the MTA is currently replacing the track and third rail service that goes to and from Roosevelt Island.
Track work that started this morning will continue through next year. Eyewitness News reporter NJ Burkett joins us live from Roosevelt Island with the story. NJ.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to talk about the F train here. You know, for the next several months, getting on and off Roosevelt Island is going to be a lot tougher because the MTA is replacing track and third rail service that goes between on and off, essentially, Roosevelt Island, to and from Roosevelt Island.
But the good thing here is the island has managed to maintain its unique character, and many future development will need to be carefully considered to keep that intact. And when you compare it to other islands with parks in the U.S., places like Governor's Island in New York or Treasure Island in San Francisco, you'll truly discover that Roosevelt Island stands out for how well it integrates its park spaces with its residential areas. Take Governor's Island, for example. Although it is bigger than Roosevelt Island and contains some of our country's most historic military sites like Castle Williams and Fort Jay, it is still mostly a tourist destination. People visit for the day, but they don't live there. Roosevelt Island, on the other hand, is a living, breathing community. It is home to around 14,000 residents, a mix of young professionals, families, and retirees. When it comes to economic value, Roosevelt Island plays an important role in the state. The Cornell Tech campus brings jobs and economic activity to the area. The island is also a prime spot for healthcare. The Kohler Goldwater Hospital, designed by Isidore Rosenfield, occupying 6.7% of the island's total land area, is a rare gem in its own right. It was originally established in 1939 as the Welfare Island Hospital for Chronic Diseases. However, over the years, it has served various functions, including a nursing home and a rehabilitation center, and merged with its sister facility, Bird S. Kohler Hospital, in 1996 to form the Kohler Goldwater Specialty Hospital and Nursing Facility. Today, it plays an undeniable role in medical research and treatment, particularly in chronic disease management. Socially, the island fosters a strong sense of community. With several parks, playgrounds, and sports facilities, it is indeed designed to encourage social interaction. In a city that never sleeps, this island is where you can take a breath, let the kids run around, and have a barbecue with your neighbors. It is the backyard New Yorkers never had. Roosevelt Island is the blueprint for future urban planning, a complete model for how urban planners should think about future development. You see, sometimes the best places are the ones that don't even try too hard to impress you. They are just there waiting for you to open your eyes and see them for their unique purpose. Home is where the heart is. And for many New Yorkers, Roosevelt Island is that quiet home away from the chaotic life of Manhattan. Like and share this video to spread awareness. If you haven't already, subscribe and click the bell icon so you don't miss out on our future content. Thank you for your support.